After the extreme volatility the markets experienced last week with Russia invading Ukraine, one would naturally expect the markets to continue down. It's what the doomsdayers continue to tell us. The markets are bad, the world's coming to an end. We've seen the peak and we should crash 20, 30, 40, 70% from all-time highs. But we're seeing the opposite, at least in the short term. That's what we're going to look at in today's video. I've got Michael back on the channel to go through his thoughts on the long-term picture of Bitcoin and the short-term leverage trading positions, which is what he does full-time. We're trading on Bybit, and if you want up to $4,000 of sign-up bonuses, use the link in the description. These regular market updates build upon the content which I produce for this channel, and in particular, the last two videos have had fantastic feedback from you guys. You've said that this is the sort of content which you can't find anywhere else on YouTube in order to build your portfolios and survive and grow into full-time investors here. So I'll leave a link to these videos at the end of this video. So make sure you stick around for that. And if you forget, hit that subscribe button. And of course, do the thing that we all hate hearing the most, like the video up. Let's dive in.
Crude oil has spiked to its highest level in over 7.5 years. Gold has put in double-digit gains despite the uncertainty, while Bitcoin beats to the sound of its own drum, but there does appear to be a big picture base in the making. Welcome back to Jason's channel. I'm your host, Michael, his younger brother. I'm full of opinions and general information only because I'm not a financial advisor. As always, do your own research before making any financial decision. Up on the screen right now, I have Bitcoin on the weekly chart. Now, I use my weekly chart to gauge my long-term trends and also for big areas of accumulation and distribution. Now, that always helps when we're trying to identify major tops and major bottoms, because if we are going to be seeing a major turning point, we need it to show up on something like the weekly chart. So when the market or the price moves away from those levels, it gives us confidence that we are going to be seeing a big picture move up or down. Now, this is also helpful for my short-term trading, which I'll get to in a moment. But as you can see on the weekly chart right now, Bitcoin started to find some kind of equilibrium around this price of high 30,000s, low 40,000s, and the price just keeps oscillating back and forth. Now, it is starting to move into a bit of a wedge pattern, and I will go into a bit more detail on the daily chart as well. But we can just see that there's a fair amount of indecision by the big players, the smart money. Everyone's just trying to decide whether this is going to be the new base or if price is going to get pushed and pulled a little more before doing so. Now, I tend to think that the price is going to go lower eventually in the coming weeks, potentially in the next couple of months. But until then, this still means there's plenty of opportunity on both the long side and the short side of the market for my shorter term trading. I'm not expecting another macro move up, something such as last year from that July into November. I think we're going to have to need a bit more time of going sideways before we can develop into a bigger picture move. Doesn't mean that's going to happen for certainty. It's just what I'm expecting to happen right now. And especially as you can see with Bitcoin on the weekly chart, starting to contract within a bit of a wedge pattern. I just wouldn't expect any major moves until at least the price can get back above its top side trend line, especially for the buy side of the market. And the same is true for the sell side of the market. So keeping this big picture view in mind, I can zoom into my lower time frame charts to give me some kind of perspective on where I can expect price to either hesitate and pause, or perhaps where it will break out and pick up some momentum. So to zoom into the daily chart, we can see where those prices really develop in terms of overhead resistance and underside support. Before zooming into the intraday charts, I've got the daily chart up on the screen now, so we can see where we may have some potential overhead resistance and also some underside support. Now, it will be interesting to note that this particular top here, we had our top that fell just over 40,000 bucks. If we draw our 50% on the chart to know what strength and weakness is that we're looking at, we had this price before the low, rather before the top actually came in. It basically hit it dead on and found some resistance. So this price of about $40,000 does prove to be a very critical price support level, rather resistance level at the moment. We want to see Bitcoin break back through that price of around 40K, and then I think it will be most certainly getting back up to its overhead trend line before we may potentially get some resistance again. So while the price does appear to be putting in a bigger picture higher low on something like the weekly time frame, which is obviously very bullish for the big picture charts, we want to see the smaller time frames also click into gear as well. So if we can get another higher low on the daily charts and then get back above our 40K, I think we could be seeing a relatively decent run in Bitcoin, at least until its overhead trend line. So we've got some big picture stuff playing out. We now have some daily stuff playing out. So we'll zoom into the intraday charts as well to look for a few key areas of support and resistance, both for the buy side and the sell side of the market. Into the intraday charts now, I have the 4-hour up on the screen. And if you recall from last week, I was talking about resistance around that $42,000. And that 42,000 bucks did coincide with some previous lows as well. So I still do believe this to be a significant resistance level, but now we've got more information and more data, and we can just see how important around that 40K, being that 50% level, has proven to be resistance for Bitcoin at the moment. So while we are still technically in the weak half of this 50% tool, I would expect there to see a decent amount of strength, especially if price can break through that 40K, break above these old tops. And I think we're going to be on our way certainly to 42K, and even more likely up until this trend line that will come in and around that 43,000 bucks, depending where it gets there in terms of time. But regardless, above 40K, I think we're going to be seeing 42K, almost certainly. Obviously, there's no guarantees. That's just the way I'm playing the market at the moment. But as for the underside of the market, it'll be interesting to see that this particular dip that we've seen on the 4-hour chart, remember, is putting in a potential for a higher low. Now, we want to be seeing higher lows for higher prices. It seems pretty obvious, but it's surprising how many people overlook it. And in terms of a shorter term 50% level, once again, Bitcoin finding support on its 50%. If you don't use this tool yet, I'd highly recommend you do. It's just almost infallible. Nothing works all of the time, but it works very, very often, as you can see here. Bitcoin finding support on its 50%, technically strong on its short-term 50% level, but still weak on its bigger-term 50% level. So we are getting a bit more of a wedge even on our shorter-term time frame charts as well, but we would expect price to break through, most likely when the US section kicks into gear, just in about 12 hours from now. The US markets will wake up, we'll have more people active in the market. I'd expect price to get a little bit more volatile around that time, and we'll get a bit more decision as to which way price wants to resolve, whether we are going to be breaking to the upside or the downside. Now, if the price does start to break back below this 50% level at around that 37,200 bucks, I would expect there to be a retest of the lows at least around this 34,500 bucks to 35,000 bucks. It'd be very dangerous for the price of Bitcoin if it does break back down below that 34,500 to 35,000 dollars, because I think that this low at 33K will most certainly get broken and will more likely be on our way down to the low 30,000s and high 20,000s. So for the time being, price is still holding up and it's looking pretty good, but you now have a few key levels that I'm watching, both for the overhead resistance to break through to get a bit more bullish, and also the underside of the market as well. It may surprise you that 5 short weeks ago, the price of Bitcoin was roughly the same as it is right now. We've obviously had our upside momentum, our downside volatility, and volatility is a trader's best friend. So while the price does oscillate around, we still have plenty of opportunities to be looking for the buy side and sell side of the market based on what the chart patterns are doing, where we get that confirmation and those breakout levels. If you're after more short-term trading and analysis videos, check out my channel, link is in the description below. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, get some more stuff done and have fun, something like that. See you in the next video.